You got Leon D here, and we're going to talk about food. I'm not an expert on anything to do with food, but I've been around a long time, and I am a professional barbecuologist. I know food. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. I know a lot of things that you may not like. That's the intro for Leon D. Let's get it on. Yeah, this is your boy Leon D. I'm here to talk about something that came up other day when a friend came by the house and I was prepping some. I was prepping some food, and I'm gonna show you this video. I was prepping ribs, and he asked me a question that I had never ever really thought of. He asked me, he said, "How come you don't season both sides of your rib rack?" In other words, I had a rack of ribs on the table, and he said, "You don't season both of them?" I said, "No, because one side is meat, one side is bones. What am I seasoning bones for?" And it really baffled me that he said, "Well, I always season both sides of my ribs and stuff." I said, "So in other words, you are throwing away half of your seasoning." He says, "Well, I never looked at it that way before." Well, who in the hell's eating the bones other than the dogs? Ain't no human eating the damn bones. And he was like, "You serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'm serious." I said, yeah. See, I only season one side. I say I never season both sides of any meat where one side is just a bone. I say no. I don't get into that. And he said, "I have never thought about it that way." I said, "It's the same way, you know, when I do my ground beef, I'm making hamburgers and stuff. I said, same way." I said, I put my seasoning inside my ground beef and mix it all up together. So the seasoning is already inside the ground beef. So, um, you know, so I don't worry about, seasoning it on top of the burger. Like you people who take McCormick, you put a burger on a smoker on a grill and you put a little seasoning on it. I said, because all my hamburgers are handmade. I make them handmade, and you see me making them handmade in this video. I say, all my burgers are handmade, so I never really thought about what you're doing. I say, now, don't get me wrong. There are times when I'm a, you know, there are I'm a big proponent of there's no such thing as too much seasoning until there is. And what I mean by that, some seasonings that I use or I have a lot of salt in them. They have a lot of salt in them, so I don't use a lot of seasoning like that. So when I use that, I put very little seasoning in my particular meat, you know. And then the other thing that he was just asking general questions, and I don't mind helping people who are stupid at least once. I got no problem with that. And so he asked me, he said, "Hey, I got a question about this beef. It's 93%, meat, 7% fat." He said, "But it falls apart when I put it on the grill." I said, "Because it's too," I said, "if you hand make them, you got to use a binder." He said, "What do you use? What do you mean a binder?" "You got to use something like glue. I don't mean real glue, but something that has the same effect as glue." And I said, "I use eggs." He said, "You use eggs in your hamburgers? It's going to burn off. It's just a binder. It's just holding everything together." And he was like, "Yeah, mine falls apart." I said, "Because the higher the higher the meat content versus the fat content, that is going to make that meat finer. Fine meat need to be held together." I see my hamburgers, especially when I'm giving, when I invite friends over and stuff, I always buy 80/20 and I use eggs. And so he was like, "And you put your seasoning in there while you're mixing up by hand?" "I sure do." I say, "I do the same thing in pork chops." I say, my pork chops, I get grill marks because I put a heavy piece of brick on top of them so that they press down on the grates. But it was just some of the things he was asking. And I asked him, I said, "Let me ask you a question." He said, "What is that?" I said, "So all this time you've been cooking your food a certain way and you have never thought about some of the stupid shit you've been doing?" And he was like, "Hey, I just, I've been cooking a long time, and I learned from my uncles." I said, "I learned a lot of things from my uncles, I learned how to cook roadkill from my one uncle, and I realized when I got 16, he had never bought meat in his life. He lived in the country. He has never bought meat. He picked meat up on the way home. He always said, I'm going to pick some meat up on the way home. I just didn't think it was roadkill. I thought he was going by a grocery store, and I found out he ain't never been to a grocery store to get no meat in his whole damn life. He had just strictly bought meat. And it was just interesting that he had always just driving down the street, finding meat. Never once fazed him at all. So, when you cook a certain way, it becomes normal or natural to you. But if you love doing it, like a lot of guys like being on the smokers and the grills on weekends, they think they are the world best. But look at a show or two. Start with the hygiene part and then go to the roadkill part, why you shouldn't eat roadkill, why you shouldn't do a lot of things with roadkill. And my uncle, he lived a good 47 years living on roadkill. If it can run, he tried to hit it or shoot it. He didn't care. If it walked, it was his. If it was laying in the streets, not breathing, he didn't care how long it's been there. He would fight the crows and buzzards to get off his meat. And that's how he lived his life. He didn't live a long life, but damn if he didn't live a good life. Because a lot of people live a long time, but they're not happy most of those years. My uncle was happy every day. So when it comes to trying to make sure you eat healthy and do a lot of different things and stuff, you got to make sure that, you know what you're doing. Because when I told him that I never seasoned the bottom of my ribs, he was totally in shock. And almost everybody I know, I found out I was the odd one because they all seasoned both sides of it. And my whole thing was, why? You got bones on one side, meat on the other side. That's what ribs are. You think about it. You touch your own ribs. Why are you going to season the part that's all bone? You want the part that's all meat to be the perfect part. Some things, like chicken. You season all of it. Like brisket, pulled pork. Yes. But if you're doing a leg of lamb, then you season, the meat part, not the bone part. It's like a chicken foot. Speaking of that, I was in Costco the other day and I bought some chicken thighs, and inside the bag of thighs, they had a chicken foot. Some people would have threw up. It would have turned them off. Not me. Back in the day, I would have boiled the hell out of him and made some broth. Back in the day. The only thing I was mad about, I was buying this bag of meat out of Costco. I was buying it by weight. I know that a foot cost me another 40 cents in weight. When you're paying by the pound, I want straight up the food I want. I don't want no add-ons, especially when I didn't ask for them and I know they're going to cost money. Also, they had tomahawk steaks without the handles. It looked kind of weird, but really it's just a big ribeye. It looked kind of weird. And then my buddy saw him on my grill, the same guy who asked me why I don't season the the bone side of the ribs. He said, why you don't put any seasoning on the fat? Because the ribeye had maybe a little more than a 1/4 inch of fat on the edges, and I trimmed it down to like a 1/4 inch. And he was like, why you don't put seasoning on the fat part of your meat? I said, because that's going to render off. That's going to burn off. You're just going to burn the seasoning right off, and it's not going to be on the meat part once that fat is gone. He seemed stunned. When I told him that, he says, I said, I'm seasoning both sides. And he said, well, I season both sides and the outer part of it. And I was like, that's just fat. I really don't want to eat fat. I said, I don't eat fat. But because he was fat, to him, it looked like just another delicacy to him, because he's probably, well, in a nutshell, he's built like an egg. You ever seen Humpty Dumpty? Yeah, he's Dumpty Humpty. Yeah, I mean, to him, he's like, well, it looks good to me. I say, well, that makes you fat. But then again, you probably don't think you're fat. Most fat people don't think they're fat. I totally get that. I got friends who are black and don't know they're black. I got friends who are white and forget they're white. It depends on who they're around and what they want to say and how they want to act that day. My neighbor over next door, he's white, and he plays Public Enemy all day. Matter of fact, he talks like Chuck D, but looks like Flavor Flav. And he's white as snow. He walks around with his big old clock on and stuff, playing Public Enemy. He probably was a roadie or the manager or something like that. I don't know. But my buddy was asking me about other types of meat, and I told him, and I put some lamb on, and he said he had never had smoked lamb. And I told him that the price point lamb is, you're not gonna have any today either. He said, I just wanted one bone, see what it tastes like. I said, well, they got lots of it at most butchers and Costco, just to go buy some lamb and smoke it, see what it tastes like. But I'm always stunned by people, in this day and age of YouTube, you can look at YouTube and find out how to fix any damn thing, how to smoke anything, how to cook anything. Now, I tell people this all the time. When you use a recipe by somebody else, remember, it is catered for their palate, not yours. You got to tweak and peak, that to get it the way you want it to taste. Whether it's more salt, less milk, more water, you got to tweak any recipe that you're given, unless you got the exact same palate as the person who wrote that recipe. That's why when people ask me for a recipe, I tell them, this is what I'll do. I'll tell you which ingredients I use. I'll tell you all the ingredients, and then you decide what proportions you want to make in your particular recipe. We all have the same ingredients, but I'll tell you how I look at it. Like my macaroni and cheese. People love it. They love it, and kids love it because it's cheesy. But not to a point where the cheese is like soft or runny. Not at all. But it's cheese on every single noodle. I've seen macaroni and cheese where there's cheese on every third noodle. Other two are just al dente. But they're dry as a bone. That's just how some people like their foods. And I'm all right with that. I won't eat it. But I can't tell you, I can't tell you, it's a couple of things in life you can't give people. You can't give people feelings. Your feelings are what they are. You can't give people motivation. They gotta want to do it. You can't give them motivation. They gotta want to do it. If they don't want to do it, they're not gonna do it. And they're not gonna be good at it because they don't want to do it. You can't give people that. But you can't give people hope. Now, I'm big into giving people hope. Of course, they always fail. But I give them hope. Especially when it comes to cooking. I'm like, you know what? They hope it come out right. They hope they bought the right ingredient. And they hope everybody's going to enjoy it. The only time hope is a great strategy when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and it's just you and her left in the club. She hope she get one more drink and you hope she go home with you. That's a terrible strategy, hope is. But I try and give people hope because I know hope usually equals failure. 99% of the time, hope is failure. You know it before you even do it that it's going to be failure. So, my buddy, when he was asking me about, other types of meats that I don't season both sides, and I just told him anything with a bone on it, where the bone is just skin and bones. I said, now, if you're going to have chicken and, you got a bone and you got skin on it, you might want to season that because most people eat chicken skin. A lot of people love chicken skin. So, they buy these drumettes and all that. Yeah, I season the whole drumette, the chicken drumette. I do the whole thing. If I'm doing whole wings, I season both sides of it and in the middle because you don't know if someone's going to start their bite at. But I know on ribs, you're not starting your bite on the bone side. Then again, if you got little dumbass Johnny over there, he probably will. People, everybody got somebody in their family who's slow. Everybody got somebody in their family who's slow. You may not know it when you're growing up with them, but you quickly figure it out. You figure it out, especially when you in lunch, in first grade and Johnny's eating the damn dessert first. You say, okay, he's a little slow. He was never taught. And you can't blame people for being slow when it comes to cooking and food. Because, you can't blame somebody else for their DNA. A little slow Johnny, he came from somebody. And here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. You don't get to pick your relatives. No, you don't. Because I know if I can pick mine, they look a lot different than the ones I got. And some of you probably the same way. You probably like, damn, I would have never picked him to be my cousin. Like the ones that go to jail, the ones that's dumb. There's some that I would have never picked. So when it comes to seasoning foods, you got to know what the meat is and what you're trying to get to and how you want the meat to finish. I do a lot of what they call time cooking. I know when my food is going to be finished when I start. I already know that because I use a consistent temperature and I have smokers and grills that I ain't got to fight with to maintain a constant temperature. I ain't got to fight with them. I already know what they're going to do. Because when I buy a new one, I go through all that cycling as far as where's the cold spot, where's the hot spot. If I put it at 275, is it going to stay there? If I put it at 225, is it going to stay there? I know the size of the meat. This is 12 pounds. This is 6 pounds. This is how long it should take at this temperature. I write all that stuff down. It's almost like going to medical school. Actually, it is going to medical school because I'm operating. I am operating on my meat. When I start my smoking that morning, I'm doing surgery because I'm operating. I got the chicken, the beef, the pork all going. I'm working on the sides. That's all going at the same time. I'm rotating. I'm not multitasking. I'm doing one thing at a time. I'm just perfecting my time. That's a big difference. All you professional multitaskers who can't get shit done, no. I don't have a lot of thoughts. I'm not thinking about what's on Netflix. I'm thinking about how's the food going to come out. If I do all these things right, it should not be a problem. And it should be on time. When I say come here at 4 o'clock or 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, I'm not going to call you back and say, hey, things didn't go right. Why don't you come a little later? That's not I already know I'm going to be ready when I told you 4 days ago because I work backwards. I want to finish at 1 o'clock. These are things I got to do, and this is when I must start. I don't have any plans between when I must start and when I must finish. I don't have to go to the store. I don't have to go mow the grass. I don't have to do none of that kind of stuff. So the key is know your seasoning, how you're going to season, what you're going to season. And not only that, know your seasoning ingredients. Don't just have somebody tell you this is a good product. Read what the hell it say on the outside. Because the last thing I want to do is add 3 or 4 seasonings together and find out all 3 or 4 are 99% salt. And I'm just sitting there killing the family. They may enjoy it when they eat it, but 10 years from now, and they weigh 500 pounds, you can look at them and say, that's my fault. I should have told little fat Terry, don't eat all that food like that. It's kind of funny. A guy asked me the other day, what kind of barbecue sauce do I like? I can tell you right now, I don't put barbecue sauce on my meats. When your meat's that good and the seasoning's that good, you don't need no sauce. Hell, if you want some sauce, just run by 7-Eleven, buy you some, buy yourself some sauce and just drink sauce by itself. I've seen people go through a bottle of sauce on one chicken leg. I'm thinking he didn't really want no meat. He wanted to just drink some damn sauce. So I see people do a lot of crazy things. But now I use a dry rub, and if you want to add some sauce to it, by all means, go ahead. But I know for a fact you don't need to. But if you got a sauce addition, if you're addicted to sauce, you might want to add something. But I know you come over here as a barbecuologist, I can break your sauce habit because I don't use no sauce, none in my house. And I got friends, man, they run out and get some sauce. I gotta have Sweet Baby Ray's. And I've seen friends drink Sweet Baby Ray's without any meat. They put it on bread. I've seen people put it on a grilled cheese sandwich. It's kind of like A1. If I cook a steak, you don't need no A1. Why you gonna buy an expensive piece of meat and put some cheap ass sauce on it? You're thinking backwards. If I'm gonna worry about the A1 sauce, then I don't need to go buy no expensive piece of meat. I can buy a hot dog. I'm still getting my A1 sauce with it. If I buy a steak, I'm buying a damn $12, $13 a pound steak. I don't need no sauce on it. At least I should not. If I do, something went wrong in the process of me cooking this food and delivering this food to somebody. Something went very, very wrong. So that's the wrap for tonight. We'll do another one next week. We'll talk about a different subject. But I guarantee you, there's going to be some food in there. So that's how it works. You don't need no sauce. You don't need to put seasoning on both sides of ribs. When I see that, it makes me sick. I'm thinking he just wasting money. Even though seasoning is cheap, you ain't got to waste it. Save it for the next piece of meat. This is your boy DJ Leon D out.